everyone. This is the inaugural edition of Table Talk with the Jackson family. I'm happy you're joining us today, and I want you to know that you get a chance to meet my family. My wife, Renetta, our son, Cornell, and our daughter, Corinne. Through these Table Talk discussions, we're going to be talking about real estate. And you're going to learn about how we share our thoughts and experiences related to the real estate industry. Sometimes you're going to see us and hear us debate the issues, calling one another out about some things that represent our different view on an issue. Whether it's the appraisal process or redlining or community development, whatever, you're going to hear a lot of that in these Table Talk discussions. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Tell us about the deal.
So, as you very well know, this is a development that you built here at Cornell Place in South Shore. Our son Cornell, it was named after him.
Yep.
I wish he was here with us today, but of course he lives in LA.
DTLA, downtown LA.
Yes. But anyhow, you built this development 23 years ago with your partner.
Yes.
And we had our former neighbor, who was an owner for, she was the original owner.
Yeah.
And so she decided to sell. And we put the house on the market and sold it within a day.
Yeah. How did you kind of market the property to move that quickly?
Well, it just so happened that where they're living, that's another client of mine, and that client called and said that the tenants were preparing to move, and so I needed to re-rent her condo once they moved. And when I contacted the tenants, I learned that they were interested in buying a home, and it turned out that they were interested in being on the east side near the lake. I knew that I was going to be placing one of the homes within the development that they had built.
Yeah.
And so I told them about it and showed them a video that I had just had prepared for the property. And they were interested, and they came in and looked at it. It wasn't the only house they looked at. But in the end, they decided to buy that one.
Right.
So what was the price point?
Well, you can go online and find out that.
No, come on, man.
No, you can go online.
Well, the closing amount. I mean, the closing amount. You can.
But like she said, you can look on.
You can look online.
That's public record.
As a broker, I like to be respectful.
Well, you sold the house at the very beginning.
I did.
So
What year was that again?
That was in 1995.
1997.
1997. So you sold it twice. You touched this twice. You touched it when it was originally built.
Yes.
For the seller you just serviced, and then you're touching it a second. You just touched it a second time. So let me ask you this: since you don't want to tell me the exact price, was it dramatically higher than when it was first sold by me?
Well, you're talking 23 years later, and even though we've suffered a couple of crashes in the market, and we're in a pandemic now. Obviously there's going to be some uptick in the market. Mm-hmm. We're close to the lake. We have the golf course here in our neighborhood. We're about 12 minutes south of downtown off Lakeshore Drive. So obviously, the market did improve.
Yeah, so what I'm getting to is the appraisal process. So, right, it's like, what did you guys observe about the appraisal process?
Well, here's the thing about the appraisal. I like to kind of rewind your question. Whenever we before we put a house on the market, for our sellers, we're going to prepare what's called a comparable market analysis. And we look at the homes that of like kind that have sold within the last 6 months. And that helps to present data to our seller that helps them to decide on the list price for their home.
But isn't that kind of, I don't know, for our neighborhood just being a resident here for so long, isn't that kind of complicated just given that there's our block, and then if you go a block east, I think things change a little bit dramatically in terms of one, the types of houses, and then the price points of those houses, and then our alley is separated from the Jackson Park Highlands, where you have Jesse Jackson and his family living, and you have a lot of houses that are just, Jackson Park Highlands is known as a really prominent area where I think you can't even get over there for really less than $500,000 now. So
Well,
how does that kind of complicate it?
Well, again, comparable market analysis report is based on like-kind properties. So what you have to do, usually you can go anywhere from 3 to 5 mile radius. And South Shore is a huge community, and so we looked for properties that are more like-kind to the property that we sold, and what we found, there were several that had sold within the South Shore area that I was able to offer to my seller for her to decide on her list price. And it's the same information that, when we compile these reports, we offer to the appraiser when he arrives, once we get a buyer, we offer that report to the appraiser because it's
but at the same time, aren't you having to sort of overcome some historical obstacles that homeowners and communities of color deal with?
But I don't think she can answer a question like that just because she's a broker. I
Well,
don't think she can.
you were working with her, you were shadowing her on this deal, so what did you notice?
Ethically I'm not. Ethically I'm bound to have a lot of the same, say a lot of the same things, but I think just kind of my urban studies lens and major hat on, I think something's systemically wrong with the way we have the appraisal process. I think it's rooted in practices of redlining and discrimination and discrimination with loans and valuing different neighborhoods based on the color of one's skins. And I think that a lot of the legacies have been embedded in the infrastructure, in the place, in the space that is still in existence today, and it has a negative repercussion for the home values increasing today. I think there's a direct correlation, but I also think Black neighborhoods in particular are more economically diverse than other neighborhoods, period, because we tend to live with each other, with our own.
Okay.
And I think that within a neighborhood such as South Shore, you have pockets, you have subdivisions that are radically increased in price value, whereas if you go outside of that subdivision, the prices might just either dramatically decrease or, I think in our neighborhood, it dramatically increase. I don't think it's a dramatic increase.
Now remember, along with 2 partners, I built this development. So we had to encounter the whole appraisal process problem 23 years ago.
Right.
Where we had to we were challenged with trying to even set the sale price. And we knew that it was important to set the sale price at a respectable level in order to strengthen the community economic fabric for this community.
Right.
Which is part of what Urban Equities is all about. Trying to drive increased value for Black homeowners, particularly in a community like South Shore, and to help drive an increase in net worth. Because we know that homes represent the single biggest asset that folks have that represents, net worth value.
And wealth. And I think right now it's coming to light. I think I read an article that was like the wealth gap, or, oh no, there's less Black homeowners now than there were in 1965.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't know that, especially in a city like Chicago, as opposed to a city like New York. It's actually, if your credit's in line and you have stable income, it's actually more beneficial for you to buy something, to own something,
so
because you have an asset.
So Renata, what would you say to the Black homebuyer prospects, the Black market about that?
Yes, I'm listening to your dialogue, and this is what I would say. I'm a professional broker, bottom line. So when I go into any and all communities, I'm not looking at the faces and the makeup of the individuals as much as I'm going in to do a job, and my job consists of looking at homes that have sold of like kind within the last 6 months and determining, being able to offer data to my seller or my buyer regarding the market values in that community, because banks look at the homes that have sold within a community within the last 6 to 12 months. In some cases, they go out to 12 months if there's not enough property information that's being offered. Maybe there have not been enough sales within the last 6 months, so they'll allow for 12 months. So what y'all talking about, I don't even really participate in that because that's not my focus. My focus is to offer data that tells the seller what they may want to consider as a list price to help them to decide that information. And you have to, that's the information that drives it, because that's the same information that the bank is looking at. That's why the same CMA report I may offer to my seller, I can offer to the appraiser.
But I
The
think what
appraiser.
Eddie's trying to say is, like, you have to follow a certain system by being a broker.
It's
you
a
have to
process.
follow a process that's been followed for years, for decades, for generations. And what we're saying is that there's a generational issue with the system. That with having this process and having this is how we're going to one size fit all appraise a house for all neighborhoods doesn't work, because all neighborhoods were not resided in equally.
But here's the thing, Corinne. You're in the process of getting your real estate broker's license. And there has to be guidelines that everyone is governed by, because if you had, because this community is makeup is this way, or that community is makeup is different, so we're gonna apply it would
It doesn't
just
matter.
it would just be too convoluted. It would be unfair. No matter what you try to do, somebody is going to not like the system. So you come up with a system that can be applied, that is not considered to be unfair from community to community. You can't do that.
Well, I think as someone who's about to get their broker's license, I'll follow the same rules and regulations and guidelines put in place. I'm not going to be a rebel and not do that, but I can be critical of a nothing else. Always secure my bag, but nothing else.
You're gonna be on my team, and that's gonna fall on me.
No, but the thing is that I think it's important to remain critical, and I think to your point of, it would be too convoluted. I mean, it's the privilege is keeping it simple. I mean, becoming uncomfortable and pushing yourself and being critical to fix an issue, because this issue is this is academically proven.
You still have to think of it as, there has to be a way that everybody follows, because to start developing, different kinds of measures and standards, depending on the zip code or depending on the makeup of an area, that gets to be way too risky.
Well, I don't think that that's something that should happen. But I think in Evanston they're doing some type of reparations program. To an extent, I see what that does. It helps people get into the door, first-time homeowners, to get into the door to buy property.
But see, that's a whole different issue.
No, I don't think that's a whole different issue.
Yes,
Because
that's redlining. I don't know.
That's part of what we're talking about here.
But I don't know enough about the reparations that are being offered in Evanston. That's something that we are drilling down on, because we like to know more about it. However, we're talking about an application for how do you measure market value, and the board has come up with that is to use comparable market analysis to look at sold properties, and that's what we have to work with.
No, I think
And you know,
your point of that's what we have to work with, for me, is not enough. And for redlining in Evanston, is not unique to Evanston. That's like an American issue. Redlining has a direct effect on one's black identity.
child, I can tell you gonna be a rebel.
But I can follow direct. But also I can be like pragmatic with how I provide solutions. I mean, I can get my broker's license and also go get my master's in public policy and administration.
That's right.
So you can do two things at once, but it's
And
also important while you're observing things, because real estate brokers have a direct impact
That's
on
right.
how walkability is viewed, how
people live.
and how people
Right, and
perceive a neighborhood. Brokers are really the people guiding them.
And how people can consider the value of their home.
Exactly.
And I'm not against any of what you guys are saying, but what I am saying, you asked me about the process,
Yeah.
and I gave you the process, and that's the process that
Yeah.
I applied when we in setting, helping the seller to look at what had sold, so she could come up with a list price. It's the process, but today we have a method for helping sellers to look at the data to be successful at selling their properties.
And I want to thank you for selling their house. Really happy you had an opportunity to meet my family and for us to share this exciting story with you. Guess what? On Monday, you have an opportunity to see this video that we're going to launch, a video that our daughter produced, where you get a chance to meet this family and to learn about the Cornell Place and South Shore community.